Greetings. I thought I'd show you guys something pretty fun. Now we're back east for a bit, and in the East Coast, there's just so much abundance of things like mushrooms, especially in the fall. It's insane. Went on a hike with some friends yesterday, Aj and I and my friend Ashley, and it was like every 2 seconds, like like there was mushrooms literally everywhere. And I haven't been on the East Coast in a while, and that's how I learned how to forage. And foraging is like when I got into it, when my friend Jeremy taught me, it changed my life, and I didn't realize how much I still remembered and how much I've actually learned being away so long, because I still like to study mushrooms. So I did find an amazing mushroom yesterday, very easy to identify. This is a pear-shaped puffball, and puffballs are cool because they're extremely easy to identify. There are some dangerous lookalikes, but there's very easy ways to tell. Now when it comes to foraging mushrooms, what I like to say is there's like a spectrum, right? You've got your like foolproof, they say like the foolproof 5 and like the deadly 4, like then the opposite sides of the spectrum, right? And if you learn these, that's really easy to identify, and you learn these, which are also pretty easy to identify, then you can slowly work your way in. Now when you're foraging, never ever eat anything that you're not totally sure what it is. And even so, once you've identified something, it's often good to just eat like a little bit. The other day we found these amazing chicken of the woods, and that, oh my god, we've just been cooking through it. So puffballs though are really easy to identify. I'd say they're on the foolproof side. Now different people have different concepts of what they consider foolproof. Morels are very easy, oysters, chicken of the woods, and puffballs, and there might be a few others depending on where you are. But what makes puffballs cool is they range from really small to gigantic. If you see a mushroom in the woods that's like this big and it's just like almost looks like a big soccer ball, and you cut it in half and it's completely pure white inside, it's probably a puffball, and you're probably safe. So here's the way to tell. So these are little guys, and they were growing out of a tree stump that was down, and there's a lot of dirt in them and whatnot. But what you want to look for is when I break this open, look at that, pure white inside. This stuff cooks up almost like a tofu or kind of an egg. You can just wash them off, cut them in half, and saute them up. And the pure white is extremely important, and there's a very specific reason why. So first off, there are earth balls, which you don't want to eat, and they have black, and they look like this. They look usually a little more round, but you open them up and they're black inside. So it's either an earth ball, or sometimes if you get a puffball too late, it starts to break down the pores, and you open it, it like shoots in your face. So obviously watch out for that. And the other reason is amanitas, which can be poisonous and deadly. They can look a little bit like puffballs when they're young, but when you cut them in half, you'll see the gills in there. So they might, because they're a little pod they break out of, they have the gills. So if you're someone that's interested in mushrooms, it's what I say first off is just getting to know mushrooms and just like being interested in them. Look at them, take pictures of them, smell them. Do not eat them until you know for sure, but you can start to study them. And then once you go out with a professional and they can show you things, then you can start to feel confident, like, okay, I can recognize that every time. There's also a great app. There's an app called Picture This, which take a picture of a plant, it tells you what it is. And it's not 100%, but pretty damn accurate. It's a great way to at least give you a sense of what it might be. You still need to be careful, but there's also now that company has a thing called Mushroom This. You take a picture. Now mushrooms are definitely much more difficult to identify when it comes to like, foraging and whatnot. And when it comes to foraging, with pictures, because there's so many different factors. So there's a little bit about mushrooms. Like the more you learn about them, the more you know their habitat, their smell, their spore print. We are aware that certain mushrooms only usually grow around certain trees, for example, and also learning the different stages. So some mushrooms they start out small, and they might be in this like kind of sack, and they might break out of that sack. And other mushrooms just shoot right out of the ground. Some mushrooms look like jelly. I got this mushroom the other day that looks like it's almost like a coral reef. There's like coral fungi, there's jelly fungi, there's so many types of mushrooms. That's why it's good to learn a few first that you feel confident, and then you can work your way up. Now, I'm not an expert, but I've been told by experts that you can touch mushrooms without getting poisoned, that whatever the poison the glands or something or in your skin, the poison can't enter it because I guess it's too big. But you should always wash your hands when you're playing with mushrooms. Just know that to be poisoned by them, you have to ingest them. So Do not ingest a mushroom unless you're absolutely certain of what it is. But again, it's cool. The more you learn, the more you start to kind of recognize these different traits that you're like, oh, that's an oyster mushroom because of this, or chicken of the woods is definitely chicken of the woods when you see it. So just wanted to share a little bit about it. If you're interested in mushroom foraging, puffballs, I think, are one of the absolute safest things. And remember, you clean them off, you break them open, they should be completely creamy white in the inside. And if they're not, either you have a poisonous lookalike or they're going bad. So that also, as they go, like you want them to be really young and fresh and springy like this. Once they've gone too far, they'll start to break down, the spores start to come out, and you touch them and usually they kind of explode or they're kind of turning dark inside. So you don't want to do that. I actually got 2 things of this. Now these will cook down pretty small, but if you get enough of them, pretty decent meal. Decent.